I've spent most of my life in airports, delayed flights, red-eye layovers, sleeping on plastic chairs while fluorescent lights hum overhead like dying insects. But nothing prepared me for what happened at Gate C-12 of the Northridge International Airport. It happened 3 years ago, though it feels like a lifetime. I was flying home after a week-long business conference, exhausted and irritated. In that way, only airports can make you. This suspended place where no one exists fully, where you're just passing through a liminal world that doesn't quite belong to the living or the dead. My flight was delayed. Of course it was. A thunderstorm had swallowed the sky, and the entire sea terminal was jammed with stranded passengers slumped over their luggage. But Gate C-12 felt different the moment I walked toward it. Colder, quieter, like sound itself didn't want to linger there. While the other gates overflowed, C-12 was nearly empty. Only a woman sitting alone in the middle row. I noticed her instantly because she didn't look stranded like the rest of us. She sat perfectly straight, hands folded in her lap, staring at the runway through the giant dark windows. She was wearing an old-fashioned blue stewardess uniform, one I'd seen only in documentaries. I remember thinking maybe she was some airline employee or part of a retro marketing thing. But something in my gut twisted the longer I stared. Her hair was pinned neatly like something from the 1960s. She didn't move, didn't blink, not even when thunder cracked directly above the airport. I took a seat a few rows behind her. My phone showed 1:08 a.m., and outside those thick windows, lightning flickered through clouds that looked bruised and swollen. Instinctively, I glanced at her again. She was now staring directly at me, not blinking, not breaking expression, just staring. I froze. Something primal inside me screamed to look away, but her eyes didn't look right. They weren't focused, not fully. They were slightly off, like she was looking through me, or past me. Finally, pretending to check my phone, I broke eye contact when I looked back. She was sitting 2 rows closer, still staring. I jolted upright, every muscle locking with cold fear. I hadn't heard her move, hadn't heard footsteps, not even a shift of fabric. It was impossible. I stood and walked quickly to another seat, farther down the gate. My heartbeat thundered harder than the storm outside, but curiosity, or stupidity, made me glance over my shoulder. The woman was now standing, no movement, no transition, just standing. And she was facing me. Lightning lit up the windows behind her, and for the briefest flash, I saw the outline of something wrong. Her legs weren't quite touching the floor. She hovered maybe an inch above it. That's when I grabbed my bag and started walking toward another gate. Then I heard it. "Don't leave." A whisper right behind me. I didn't turn. Couldn't. The cold in that moment was the kind that sinks through bone. I forced myself forward, crossing into the crowd of stranded passengers, people eating vending machine snacks, scrolling on their phones, bickering with airline staff. But even surrounded by hundreds, I felt watched. When I finally turned, she stood at the glass, staring at me. My phone vibrated violently in my hand. I looked down. Flight C-12, now boarding passenger, Harrow, Evans seat, 14A, but that was wrong. My ticket was for Gate C-19. I never booked C-12. Still, the announcement blared, final boarding for Flight 731, departing from Gate C-12. My stomach dropped. Flight 731. That number rattled something familiar in my mind. I quickly searched it online. The first result nearly made me drop my phone. Flight 731, Fatal crash, 1963. All 69 passengers and crew presumed dead. Crew A stewardess, wearing a blue 1960s uniform. I looked at C-12 again. She was gone. The gate area was completely, unnaturally empty, except for an open jet bridge door swaying slightly, like someone had just walked through. No storm should have allowed a plane to board. There was no plane, but the lights above the walkway glowed bright and inviting. For reasons I can't explain, my feet moved toward it. Halfway there, a security guard grabbed my arm so hard I yelped. "Sir, no one is supposed to be in that gate. It's been closed for years." I tried to explain the stewardess, the boarding call, the flight number. The guard's face drained of color. People keep hearing that old announcement, seeing things near the window. That gate was for the airline involved in the crash. They never reopened it. He swallowed thickly. "You're not the first passenger she's tried to take." Behind him, the jet bridge lights flickered, then went completely black. I didn't stay another second. The next morning, as I boarded my actual flight, I saw Gate C-12 one last time. A faint silhouette stood behind the darkened windows, watching me leave. To this day, I refuse to fly through that airport again, because I know, without question, she was waiting for me, and she still is. I was 17 when I saw my first ghost, but I didn't understand what it was until years later, when I worked the overnight shift at Redwin Regional Airport. The pay was terrible, the hours worse, and most nights the airport was so empty I could hear soda machines buzzing from 2 terminals away. But I liked the peace, the quiet, the loneliness, until I realized I wasn't actually alone. One night, around what must have been 2 or 3 in the morning, I was assigned to monitor the E-terminal, specifically the moving walkways, since one had been malfunctioning. The lights above were dimmed for nighttime mode, giving the whole place a yellow, underwater sort of glow. My footsteps echoed as I walked the length of the walkway. Everything was normal until I reached the middle. For some reason, the walkway started moving. I hadn't touched the activation pad. No one else was around, but it hummed to life beneath me. I instantly stepped off. At the far end, someone stood watching me, a girl, maybe my age, wearing jeans and a hoodie. Her hood was up, her hair hanging over her face, and she stood perfectly still, so still she might have been a statue. I called out, "Hey, the terminal's closed. You're not supposed to." She vanished, not walked away, not ducked behind a corner. Vanished. I felt every hair rise on my body. My throat tightened until I could barely swallow. I radioed security, but no one else was on duty except one guy half asleep in the operations room. I told myself it was stress, a shadow, a reflection. But around 4 a.m., it happened again. The walkway started moving, this time backward. When I looked toward the far end, she was standing there again, this time closer. Her hood was still up, but her head was tilted, like she was studying me. I froze. My breathing turned shallow. Then she lifted her hand, slowly, fingers trembling like she was underwater, and pointed down the walkway. I didn't move. She pointed again, more forceful. Against my will, I stepped onto the moving belt. It carried me forward, toward her. Halfway down, the lights above flickered so violently they buzzed. My radio crackled with static. The walkway sped up until I was stumbling to keep my balance. When it abruptly stopped, I was just a few feet away from her. She lifted her head, and her face. God, it was wrong, completely wrong. Her skin was ashen and torn near the jawline. Her eyes were bloodshot and starved of life. Frost clung to her eyelashes. Her lips were cracked and blue. She had been dead a long time. Before I could run, she spoke. Her voice was fractured and hoarse, like broken glass dragged over concrete. "Find me." Her fingers curled into fists. She repeated, "Find me. Please." My whole body shook as she backed away, slowly, almost drifting, until she dissolved into shadows. I sprinted back to security, breathless, shaking, crying. The only guard on duty laughed it off until he reviewed the walkway camera. His face went pale. Static washed the entire video, except one still frame, frozen for less than a second. A girl with frost-bitten lips standing inches from the camera, staring directly into it. After weeks of nightmares, I convinced another guard to tell me what he knew. Years ago, a teenage runaway froze to death after getting trapped inside the E-terminal during a blizzard. She hid behind the maintenance doors, scared and alone, waiting for morning. But no one found her until it was too late. Every few months, passengers or staff reported seeing her on the walkway, trying to get someone's attention, trying to be found in time. I quit the job soon after. But sometimes when I'm in an airport late at night, I swear I feel a cold whisper behind me. "Find me. Find me." I don't turn around. I used to work airfield operations, basically the people who inspect runways, guide emergency vehicles, and make sure pilots don't accidentally land on top of each other. Night shifts were the worst. Fog, low visibility, freezing temperatures, and a silence so thick it felt alive. One night, that silence broke. A heavy fog had rolled over the airfield, the kind that makes floodlights look like candles in smoke. I was in the operations truck patrolling the north runway when my radio crackled, "Ops 9, be advised. Silhouette on runway 2, possible trespasser." A trespasser, in dense fog, at 3 a.m. Suicidal, more like. I drove toward the location, fog swirling in the headlights like ghostly smoke. After a minute or two, I saw him, barely. A man standing completely still in the center of the runway. He wore what looked like an airport employee vest, but it was wrong. The stripes were faded, the fabric torn. He didn't react to the truck approaching, didn't move at all. I stopped maybe 20 feet away, rolled down the window and shouted, "Hey, you can't be out here. You're going to get killed." Nothing. He didn't turn, didn't flinch, just stared down the fog-drenched runway like he was waiting for something. I stepped out of the truck reluctantly. The cold fog clung to my clothes instantly, soaking through. I walked closer. "Sir, you need to come with..." He turned. His face was pale, almost gray and dripping, as though he just climbed out of a lake. His eyes were sunken, his hair plastered to his forehead. But the worst part, his vest wasn't an employee vest, it was a life jacket. A torn, waterlogged life jacket. Before I could step back, he whispered, "They didn't see us, they didn't come." I froze. Breath fogged in front of me. Something primal clawed at my spine, telling me to run, but I couldn't. He pointed down the runway, up ahead. Through the fog, faint lights flickered, like the flashing beacons of a plane descending. Then I heard it, screaming, metal bending, water rushing, a horrific cacophony fading in and out of the air like some dying memory. He whispered again. We waited for rescue, but no one came. That's when the radio blared in my ear. Ops 9, clear the north runway. Immediately, no one should be on that strip. My gaze snapped back to the man, but he was gone. Only his footprints remained, wet, fading quickly. Back at headquarters, I hesitantly told my supervisor what I saw. He sighed heavily and closed the office door. 20 years ago, a small passenger plane crashed into the lake near the airport. During heavy fog, most bodies were recovered, except one, a man wearing a life jacket who was last seen trying to swim toward the runway lights, believing he was close to land. Some night shift workers claim he still wanders the fog, looking for help that never came. I transferred airports 6 weeks later, and on foggy nights I still avoid looking too long out the windows because I'm terrified I'll see a dripping figure staring back at me through the mist.